This is part one. The topic is leadership from time teller to a clock builder. This talk is based upon my experience post the uh, the time when I read the book by Jim Collins, Built to Last, and that was about 13, 14 years ago. And since then, I have tried to implement many of these features. It also tells us about the leadership. We often see people uh, talking about leadership, and it's well understood concepts. But in practical life, especially in countries like ours, where the conventional system still rules. The conventional understanding still rules. And the conventional understanding about the humans. And I think this is time that we talk about some of this. We are going to talk, first of all, who is a clock builder and what is about the time teller. Personally, when I was thinking about this concept, I was reminded of the management theories that one learns in the first course in management. So we think about the theory X and theory Y. So a clock builder, I would classify, would be a theory Y, and a time teller would be theory X. Now, what's the difference between theory X and theory Y? There is a fundamental difference in about our assumptions of human nature. What is generally the nature of people? There is a set of people who think people are no good, they need to be driven, they they do not have the potential, and they must be told what to do, when to do, how to do, and they do not have this ability of learning it themselves. On the other hand, the theory why people are those who believe in the employees and people having the potential, that a person has the potential, and given enough time and opportunity, people would actually do what is right and good for them. And this requires faith in the nature of people. And often this faith from superficial examination may think it is misplaced, but my assumption was that given enough time, people do come around and they see the worth of a righteous direction and right approach, and they actually understand it. It is also about human nature, that people are self motivated, they are autonomous workers, and they can do it. Whereas when we look from the point of view of the managers or administrators or the strict disciplinarians, they think that employees do not have the potential, they do not have the intrinsic value unless we tell them to do, and there is no time. We just need to get the things done through use of a stick. And people need to be treated like slaves, and they need to be driven because they would be working uh, because they do not like to work in the first place. The work is essentially boring, and work is essentially not rewarding in itself, and therefore people have to be made to work. And this actually comes out from their own experience of having loathed to work and do it, and they do not enjoy it. And for them, I believe it is always a huge task to do the work. Whereas when we look at the human nature, a person will do something for which the person can feel that it's going to add value to one's future, one's personality, one's development. And therefore, the task of the leader, the clock builder, is to enable this understanding, to help in cultivating this understanding among the people so that they can begin to see the interest and the excitement in doing work for because work in itself is a great cathartic experience. Then comes the other, after the assumption about the human nature, there is a locus of motivation. Where does the motivation resides? So, according to theory X, the motivation is extrinsic, whereas according to theory Y, motivation is something which everyone has. People are self motivated, people are intrinsically motivated, and what we need to do, according to Lord Deming, is to just remove the demotivators. That's about it. So the task, whereas the theory X people think that they need to be people need to be extrinsically motivated, and we need to use extrinsic measures like carrot and stick to make the people work. And so there are two different approaches. One is the person who is trying to remove the demotivators, so that, and the other one is trying to use the carrot and stick approach. So, what is the work of a leader? The leader actually, according to theory X, should by order the clock, so should force the clock to come into existence so that he can tell the time. So the theory X person is a time teller. So he has the idea, he has the intuition. People do not have the idea, they do not have the intuition, they do not have the capacity to think. So they need to be told everything. And that approach is the time teller approach. Whereas the building approach is to collect all the pieces and assemble them in a way where they start working together and begin to tell the time themselves. So instead of we telling the people what to do, when to do, and how to do, people should learn themselves what they need to do, when they need to do, and how to do it. And that's the difference between development of the clock to become a clock builder versus telling the time. And in this process, another important work is that, of course, when there are so many pieces and so many employees in an organization, we need to make them work with one another. So, if you have seen the internal construction of a clock, and you can see this picture of the internals of a mechanical clock, you will see that there are uh, so many gears, small gears, which are working in tandem, and they are moving around. So it is an intricate working together of the pieces which come together and then begin to tell the time. And similarly, we also need, as a leader, to enable this kind of a working together. Whereas theory X will actually say, tell the time. If the clock is not telling the time, throw it away and get a new clock. Change the people, change the person, hire and fire them, and bring on a new person who can tell the time. But this approach is really different, because the other one is a tedious one, where you are developing the systems, where you are developing the potential, and you create a culture which encourages experimentation, which encourages uh, experimentation of how things work together, and which also encouraging the change management process, when you change the process so that people who were previously not working uh, synchronously start working in tandem with one another. Then there is also a difference, and you can see this in the slide also. which is here, that you need to find the right job and project within the organization to fit the personality and competence of the employees. So this is quite different from the hire and a fire approach of the time tellers. Here the effort of the leader is to identify various opportunities that are in the environment and connect those opportunities with the personality and competence of particular employees who would really like to take advantage of that opportunity, and there will be a chemistry between the opportunity and the personality and competence of the employee, and they work, and this creates a virtuous cycle between the employees and the various projects which are lurking around, and this creates a culture which encourages experimentation, which encourages innovation, which encourages participation, which encourages engagement. And then we come to the performance management. Now, performance management is something which has now grown out of favor, which has now gotten out of favor. And there are so many articles as you can see over here, there are so many articles published in HBR and other places which say that performance management should die. See, it's no more the time where you intricately specify each and every performance parameter and start tweaking it and telling it. Because that kind of a micromanagement of the entire thing puts a huge amount of emphasis on the HR to start managing each one of these things, and anything falling out of sync with the employees creates a lot of friction. So, this approach actually typically focuses when you are looking at the administrators and the managers, and in the theory X people, their focus is on the inputs. Their focus is on the attendance, on the working, on the minutes, on the various things that are going inside the system. Whereas the other approach of the clock builder is to actually focus on outputs and outcomes. And this focus on outcomes and outputs, of course, puts a pressure, because when you are focusing on outputs, of course, the inputs and the process may become a bit vague. So this is how. But the outputs and outcomes are inspirational and they are transformational in nature for the organization. Whereas the focus on inputs and process actually forces the entire thing to become too much legalistic, ritualistic, and too much embroiled in minute details and running after the people with each detail. Here is a totally different view of the organization. So, this is the end of part one, that is leadership from time teller to clock builder.